All right. What is your favorite place to hide from the world? Sometimes the world can be overwhelming, too much. So what is your safe haven? What is that safe space that you go to be like, nope, I'm shut in. Nobody come talk to me. Leave me alone. Let me be here.
Writing.
Writing. What do you
Writing is my thing. And I write about all types of different things and just whatever is going on in my mind at the time.
Okay.
Write it down. I do a lot of reading. And in order for me to retain the information, I need to write it down. So yeah, writing is my thing. I find myself now that I'm doing a podcast, now I write and talk to myself. So my teenage son comes out of his room on Saturdays and he's like, "Is everything all right out here?" I'm like, "Yeah, just writing and talking to myself." So that is my thing. What's yours?
Okay. My favorite place to hide from the world. That would be probably at my desk in my bedroom because I have a separate desk for work and a desk for relaxation. So that if I'm in that chair, and it's not really a desk, it's more like one of those TV tabletops,
Mm-hmm.
and just having it next to me so that I can write, so that I can decompress.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I'm just in my imagination.
Right.
I'm
Okay.
just away from I'm just like disconnected from everything, and I'm solely just like away somewhere else living another life completely opposite of whatever I'm going through. So
So is
that's
it
like my favorite place
meditation?
to hide.
It's like meditation then? Meditation.
It's not meditation because I'm not really focusing on anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's closer to disassociation. It's like this they call it escapism, which can be very addicting. So I've had to focus. I had to practice doing it less, like having a
Got
time
it.
limit on how often I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we find ourselves um well, I'll say me. If I find myself breaking away from reality too often, I won't deal with reality the way that it needs to be dealt with.
Wow.
So and that can bring on a lot of anxiety or depression or other issues
Mm-hmm.
that would keep you from developing the tools that you need to be successful in dealing with issues as they arise. So escapism, like mentally, is something that is a good tool to kind of disassociate and be away
Mm-hmm.
from the world, especially if it's too much. But I typically like to do it, set aside 10-15 minutes, let me
Mm-hmm.
live off in this other world, and then I'll come back after I
Mm-hmm.
decompress, and then I'm back at it again.
That
So
is beautiful.
yeah,
And I also just learned something new too. So that's always my goal for the day. Learn something new.
yeah, every day, try to learn something new. But thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Take a Space Podcast. I am your host Leah, and I'm joined today. Oh my goodness, I feel like we talk a lot, but we just met
We just
randomly at like
so
3 o'clock in the
crazy.
morning on Clubhouse. Sashalla from Decoding Corporate Podcast. How are you?
I am doing awesome. It is Saturday. Do we say
Yes,
the, do we say
it
the day?
is Saturday.
It is Saturday, and guess what? I don't have to deal with work, so I get to be creative today. I get to talk to you, so I'm happy.
Yes, yes. It's always a good thing. It's always a good thing.
Right.
Would you mind telling my audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Sashalla Lemond. I am one of the co-hosts for Decoding Corporate America. It's a podcast that's about navigating one's career. Me and my co-hosts, we're basically your mentors in your head. So go check it out if you can. What else do you need to know? I'm a mom to a teenage boy. Okay, any tips from
More power to
other
you.
moms? The teenagers for this Gen Z, please send that out there. And I've also been in the financial industry forever, over 20 years. I'm not even trying to age myself or date myself, but it's been over 20 years. So, and I like to write and do other fun stuff and be out there in the world, but we can't do that
That Rona's still out there.
now. Okay.
Oh, that Rona's still out there.
That's how I
But
felt. I'm exhausted. I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
But it's forcing people to be creative. Like I've seen so much creativity that has come out of this like last year. 2020 was a monster, but so many people were so resilient and so creative that
Right.
it just inspired me to just keep going forward regardless of if you have the validation from your peers or not. Just keep
Exactly.
doing it. Just keep doing it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that last part that you said, keep doing it regardless of validation from your peers and not. And a lot of people, they actually need to hear that more
mm,
simply because, they use social media as a means to validate who they are.
mm, that's when
That's
that's
an
when you
important
get
piece that
stuck.
you just said.
Yeah. That's when you get stuck. And when let me just be transparent. Fear can be debilitating.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that in every sense of the word. You will not move
Right.
because of fear.
Yep.
But once you realize that the person who, because not all the content on social media is great, but
Right.
the person had confidence to put it out there,
Mm-hmm.
even if they felt, oh, this is stupid, or just
Right.
post, just do it. And I think that or go for the business, or talk to that guy, or
Mm-hmm.
ask that girl out, do the
Right.
proposal if it's healthy, if it's a healthy
If
situation.
it's not
Make sure
toxic,
it's healthy. Yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely, go for that job if you have the experience, or
why not?
even if you don't, like, ask for it. Just
Yep.
do the thing of what you're supposed to do, because
Mhm.
the alternative is sitting here on all this talent, on this huge gift that can benefit the world, but you're refusing to put it out there.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, me and my co-host, before we started the Decoding Corporate America, we've been talking about this for 2 years.
really.
I mean, talking about it for 2 years, and finally, we said to ourselves, "Okay, we just got to get this done." Okay, we understand we're
Mm,
busy, it's crazy, but we have to get this done because it's a way for us to be able to capture all this experience. Because we informally mentor people all the time, we do it all the time, and then pandemic kind of forced us into our home, so we're not out there as usual connecting with people or junior people within the industry to be able to do that face to face. So we're like, we can utilize this platform to reach more people.
right, right. I think that knowing that tomorrow's not promised, we just lost
Mhm.
Cicely Tyson, Hank Aaron's gone. Like there's so many things that are not promised, and we think that and it's sad that Chadwick Boseman, we're not going to see him in the next Black Panther. Oh, the next time. Oh, the next time. Oh, the next time. No, we don't know that we're going to have the next time. So
Mhm.
get out, do it now, and not wait. But then also, I think what's important is that we don't compare what we hold when we know all of most of what we hold, because I mean sometimes there are things that we're still discovering about ourselves. But when we hold our gifts, it's not to be compared to the finished product of somebody else's. We can't look at our gifts in process, like we're in the process of building it, so the progress bar is still loading, but you're looking
Exactly.
at someone who's already at 100% and
Right.
going, my gift means nothing.
Exactly. And you just can't do it. You just got to focus on yourself. I mean,
Yes.
for example, when you're doing this podcast, you're actually inspiring people just by, being very vulnerable and honest with your listeners. You're also bringing on guests who are doing the same thing. So it's just about, what? Are you comparing yourself to others? No, you're out here speaking your truth and actually inspiring others
Right.
at the same token, right? And not really looking
Absolutely.
at you're not looking at anyone else. Hey, let me go look at who's, I want to be next Joe Rogan for what? You're Leah.
Who first? We already have a Joe Rogan.
we
We
already have
already have a Charlemagne the God.
we
We
already have
already have a Carlos Miller of 85 South Show. We already have a Kev on stage. We already
right.
have all these people, and we already have them.
We
They're
do.
already here. So the only thing you can do is be you, and that's one of the things that I think people forget to do is play your role.
Hello.
Everybody is not meant to be a CEO. And I've said it before, not everybody's meant to have their own business.
Yep.
Somebody needs to be the janitor. Somebody needs to be the mail person. Somebody needs to be the assistant. Someone needs to know how to be the good number 2 or the number 15. If you can play your number well and play it right, opportunities will fall out the sky. I am telling you. But people are so afraid to be second fiddle or, or number 6 or even number 134.
Right.
But if you're not those numbers, if you're not playing your role, then there's no way that it can function. You think of a whole band. The person who plays the trumpet cannot also be a percussionist at the same time. You got to pick. Do one thing, and whichever one you do, just do the one that you do well.
Exactly. Yep. I love
But people are so afraid of comparison that they rather imitate someone else than to come with their own light and build their own audience.
Exactly. I mean, even just for us, as far as like you were saying, like building your own audience, like our podcast is not for everyone.
Right. Because everybody's not in corporate America. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're like, hey, we're trying to inspire the folks that are mid-career level folks who are stuck in a rut, because it happens.
Yes.
I've been in the game for a while.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to get up out of this rut. I'm just stuck.
Yeah.
Talking to those people. We're talking to the younger folks that are coming in and wondering what the world is going on. How does this operate?
Yes. And if you think about your audience, right? Okay, so let's think about demographically speaking, because our audiences could overlap.
Yes.
But we're not necessarily going for the same market.
Right.
So your audience is going to be in corporate or thinking about going to corporate. They have to be at a high enough level where they're not just starting out 6 months ago, but they are actually in a place of, okay, I have the skill set and I'm ready to move forward. They also have to be coachable, like willing to listen. Now, there's not many of those in corporate. Let me tell you. Okay. There are not many people who are coachable in corporate. And they have to be willing to grow. So all of
those last two elements, willing to grow and coachable.
Yeah.
So right, because you got the ones that are like, I know everything, I know what I'm doing. So I'm like, okay, so why did you come to me? Is it for advice, or would you like to vent?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you looking for validation? Is that why you came to me?
Right. Just please let me know. Right. But coachable. Wow, you nailed that one.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not coachable, and this is not just corporate, but if you're not coachable in the world, you cannot be successful, because if you come from the mindset of, I know everything and the way I think is right, then you collaborating or working with people, even as podcasters, it's very difficult to have a conversation with someone who thinks they're right. It's hard. It's hard, and not just hard because there's a disagreement. It's hard because I believe that effective communication is an open exchange of ideas.
Right.
You have to be able to exchange ideas. And if you're constantly waiting for me to say one thing that you can correct me on, then we're not exchanging ideas.
We're just not. You're just up on the defense. You just want to be able to prove yourself right, prove your point, and I just cannot.
Yeah. So there's not going to be much conversation, but that demographic that you're going after is not is not taking away from anything else that any of the other podcasters have.
Exactly.
Yep. Especially being Black and being in corporate. There's not a lot of podcasts that are dedicated just to that.
Exactly.
So, and it's not like you're up here, well, let me teach you how to shuck and jive and code switch and all those things. It's like, no. Let me show you how to be yourself, but also be successful in corporate.
Here's some practical advice.
Yes, absolutely.
You either take it or not. And I mean, a lot of times, when people start listening, they'll notice that we're never saying like stay in that the four walls that you're in. We're like, in case anything, if you have to leave, then do that.
Because it may not be for you. That role may not be for you.
For you.
Yes. How many? So you're up to 4 episodes now, or?
You know what? I think 3. 3 we're releasing tomorrow. We're releasing 3 tomorrow. Can you imagine? We're only on 3 and we are some experts.
So what do you think of those 3 episodes? If you had to pick one of those 3 episodes as an episode that you would want people to listen to first, which episode would it be?
It would have to be, especially because of the season, Performance Review Like a Boss Part 2. Because now is the time when people are talking about their compensation with their manager, or they're actually reviewing their past performance for 2020 in the month of January. So very timely, because we give them 2 scenarios as to how to have that dialogue with your manager.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so there are 2 scenarios that we give them. We give them one where, I don't know, you wrote your self-evaluation. You knew you were a top performer. You knew, you're like, I got this. I'm about to get top tier. The exposure is going to be on point. And you look, your manager responds to your evaluation and they're like, nah, you're just okay. Or nah, you thought you were doing what? No, we have a performance issue. So we talk about that scenario. And then we also talk about, maybe you thought you were doing amazing, awesome. Your boss responded, but you didn't get a promotion. And also that bonus, as well as the raise, did not match up. So we give you the 2 scenarios, and then we have an HR expert there to basically talk about that dialogue and what it should look like.
That's awesome. Right now with performance reviews going around, I think it's something that people should listen to, because talking about, because this is not our parents or grandparents, corporate America.
No, it's not.
But they still have very similar practices where they try to be conservative in the conversation regarding, well, we don't talk about other people's pay. We don't talk about what the salary caps are, or even what the range is, to understand what range you should work within. There's a lot of secrecy regarding, and it's not even like trying to be HR compliant, but there's just secrecy regarding the raises that are offered.
Right.
It's just like, you won't tell me what I could have gotten.
Right.
But you'll tell me what I have.
Right. Yep.
And I think that having, people who are willing to mentor and have, a podcast like that where you can listen to, okay, there's some tips here that I can absolutely use, especially when negotiating, if, like, when you go to your next job, if you're like, okay, look, this is the 3rd time I've asked for a promotion, asked for a raise, it's not happening. What is it that I'm doing? And if I've done everything, what is it that y'all not doing that I'm not willing to budge on? So how can I leave the situation amicably, where it's like, okay, this is not a good fit for me. I'm not a good fit for y'all. So let me go ahead and move around.
Yeah. And sometimes you just have to do it. And I'm basically having this conversation informally with other folks for years. So it's just a matter of, okay, how can we actually help other people just via this platform? But those questions come up all the time, right? Whenever you're going up for a job, do you negotiate that salary? Do you not? I always tell people to negotiate anyway.
Are you asking me?
No, just in general.
Yeah.
Right?
Never accept the first offer. Never accept the first offer.
Right? So it's just like one of those things, like things that people don't know. And a lot of times, believe it or not, although we might talk about it, people actually feel like, well, I'm shy about negotiating. I'm like, what? Do it.
Yeah. Or they feel that, well, this company is doing me a favor by offering me a job so that I can work for them and do their work.
Right.
No.
I always tell people, I'm like, you got to look at it, even if it's for a permanent position, that you're basically offering that company a service and your
Right.
services. And that's just how you have to look at it. So as much as yes, they're hiring you because of your because of your skill sets, and there's always wiggle room.
Yes. There, I mean, always, even if they come back and say, because I think in my last position, they were offering me, I think maybe 6,000 less than what I wanted. So I negotiated for 10,000 higher.
Look at that.
And I was like, I said, no, no.
We need to bring you back for when we start talking about that.
It's, I mean, I'm telling, and it's just leveraging what's knowing what is it, what the market rate is paying, what's in their budget, because a lot of teams are only budgeted to have so much money for each FTE or full-time employee.
Exactly.
And so if you do your research, you don't, it's not just, well, because I mean, they came in, I was like, who are you sure that's the offer they wrote down on paper?
Right.
No. Okay, no. So we're gonna no. So I went for the 6 and 4.
Even Leah asking right up front when he speaks to the recruiter, what's the budget?
Yeah. And some of them will give it to you. Other people will be like, well, we really don't give out that information. A lot of times you can, and I don't know how effective it is. I just know other people do it. So if you don't want to go the Glassdoor route, or even by searching online and seeing what the range is in your area, because what they pay in New York is going to be very different than what they pay in Oklahoma. Absolutely. But if you go and look at that range, you can even go on LinkedIn and talk to people who are in that department. Absolutely. Do not reach out to someone on a potential team that you could be a part of and ask them to connect.
Just don't do it.
Don't do that. Yeah. Now, if you want to ask them about their work, ask them, you know, what if they know what the range is for that grade, that grade pay level. That's fine.
I wouldn't even recommend that, right? Because it's like a whole smear campaign even before you get in the door, or even get the, you're doing the interview process where they're like, we don't know if we're going to hire this person, etc. So even that is a little risky too.
It is very risky. I've had 2 people who were, I was going to say auditioning, interviewing for the position, who didn't get that. I think they were only in the screening process. So they didn't get past the phone screening. But I think even when they were in the phone screening process, they reached out to me as a member on the team. But because you don't know how that team, what the hierarchy of the team is, it's very risky to find out who's what on the team. So you don't know if you're talking to a team lead or if you're talking to one of the worker bees who hates their job.
Ooh.
Also
some good insight into what's going on the team.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of tea. You're like, I don't know if I should go there or not.
Yeah. I mean, it absolutely turn you off. Oh man. I would try to make one good connection, but don't do it. Don't do it as a ruse. Like, genuinely ask. That's what I would do. But I haven't done that.
Yeah, and my thing too is, like, if you're in a certain industry and you've been around for a while, some of the players at different organizations, right?
Absolutely.
Who are your friends, etc. Reach out to them.
Yes. Especially if you're, so what I did, I had a good relationship with my previous manager. I have a great relationship with my current manager, but previously when I was at another company and I wanted to move areas or change, I wanted to change teams, but the company that I was at previously wasn't promoting me. Like, they didn't want to train me, but they also said I didn't have the experience, but they didn't allow me to get the experience that I needed to be in that position. So same old song, different day. So what I did was I connected with my manager and said, hey, I want to leave the company. but I want to make sure that I had a safety net, and only do this with managers who you like, who like you, who actually want to see you succeed outside of being in this role. I wouldn't say that to any other manager.
Never.
Hey, I want to leave this company. Okay, is this your 2 weeks? Okay, I just want to know, is this your 2 weeks?
Let me get the pink slip from now, right?
Right. But I asked her, and she'd been in the industry for maybe 10, 15 years. She had connections with multiple people across, different financial institutions. So I've been able to connect with many, many, many different people. And even in the 7 years that I've been in finance, I've made a lot of connections. So
beautiful.
As long as you're nice and you seem helpful, people will absolutely keep you as a means to an end, but at least you'll be on their radar.
And that's the power of networking.
Yes, absolutely.
That all the time. It's so important, especially if you really want to find out the real tea as to how an organization is run, what departments are hiring, and if they know you and they even have an idea as to your work quality, or even sometimes like who you're associated with, you'll have an in.
Yeah.
Which can be helpful.
I think that goes to, I wouldn't call it, they call it personal branding. And they're starting to use that a lot more in corporate America. And really what that is your reputation.
Right. Absolutely.
It's just your reputation. Are you a good worker? Do you get along with your teammates? Are you smashing people that you shouldn't be smashing? Within the same floor? Like, listen, they know things.
No. They know. They're like, do I want this on my team or nah?
Yeah, I'm building a solid team. Can I trust this person?
And it's a small industry. Our industry is small.
Oh, absolutely. Anybody can know any. It's like less than 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, seriously.
That's it. They know your track record. They know your track record. Know how long you've been there. Know pretty much who to talk to about you.
Yes.
And if your name is even vaguely familiar, they'll figure out everything they need to know.
And this is why you ever see sometimes when you have a colleague that's leaving the company and you're like, everyone's like, where you going? And they're like, no, I'm good. And the reason why they say, no, I'm good, they're waiting until they get into that new job and get settled before they tell everyone, because of stuff like that. Because everyone knows everyone. I mean, I've seen, this was like 15 years ago, where I saw where someone was going to another company, someone found out about it who they didn't like, and they certainly went over and made a call about that individual. So I've seen that before. So it's one of those things where people, whenever they're like, no, it's okay, I'll let you know when I get there, like after they're settled for 3 months.
Yeah, I absolutely did not post. I mean, I typically don't update my LinkedIn. I update it once a year.
Oh,
because if I tend to leave or go to another company, I won't update it until after the fact.
You're like, let me wait till I'm settled.
Yeah, wait till I'm in here. I'm in here good, just in case something goes on and I want to leave. I don't want to. What do they call it? Puddle jumping for pennies, back and forth. Because
I didn't hear that. This is a new term. I'm just hearing. What is it called?
Puddle jumping for pennies. So puddle jumping is just one puddle to the next, right?
Got it.
When you're puddle jumping for pennies, that means that let's say, we'll use this as an example. I don't know how many people work at Wells, but we're going to use this as an example.
Right.
Because Wells, Citibank, and there's another one that does the same thing. They hire people, and they're not necessarily contractors, but they hire teams on, and the teams are kind of contracted where it may take 1.5 years to do a project. So you can keep that job for 1.5 years, and then they realign.
Got it.
Because Wells Fargo, and they're still under consent order. They still have a consent order that they're working to get out from under, especially with all the gaming that they did previously. Right. So if you're working at Chase, you have a good job at Chase. And I'm using these because I don't work there. So let's say you're working at Chase and you have a good job in the department that you're working in, whether it be collections, mortgage, AML, fraud, whatever it is. You're
Right.
working and you've been trying to get a promotion, or you don't really necessarily like the work that you're doing, and you want to do something else. So Wells Fargo comes along, and this is why it's important to research the company that you're going to.
Yep.
Wells Fargo comes along and says, "Hey, you're making 50,000 there. All right, cool. We'll offer you 57 if you come here and work for us." And the reason why I call it, like, yes, it seems like a good jump, going from 50,000 a year to 57,000 a year.
It just doesn't add up.
Until you start taking into account a couple things.
Yep.
One, you've been at your job for less than a year.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really have a good rapport because you've been in your position for less than a year. So you've probably made some decent connections, but people can't really give the consistency of your work to say, yeah, this person has been consistent for 6 months to a year doing this thing, because it's been less than a year. The second thing is you would have to go through a whole nother rehiring process where you're learning a whole new company. It's new insurance, new team, new management style, new everything, right? And a company like Wells Fargo, even though they've been around for a long time, they just had a whole rebrand because of the gaming that occurred, where they almost lost their California charter, which is super hard to get. People in the finance industry will tell you California is a very hard place to get a charter to be able to do this in, right? But they almost lost their California charter, and they're still under consent order, and it may be a couple years before they get out from under that, maybe sooner, but they tend to hire teams in contract. So you're getting hired onto a permanent position, but companies like Wells Fargo will realign in a year and start doing layoffs. Now, I know some people, especially being in a financial hub where I am, who have gone on to be with Wells Fargo.
Right.
Because they get that bump in pay. It wasn't 7,000, it was less than that. But they go get that bump in pay. And now Wells Fargo is laying off something crazy, like a few thousand people across the board. Yes, they're going to be laying off. Who do you think is laid off first? The tenured people or the people who just came on?
Right. Last in, first out. LIFO.
Yeah. So you did all that puddle jumping for pennies to try to get that. Oh, it's a bump in pay, 7,000 more a year, which is going to be eaten up in taxes. And then now you can't go back to your previous job, which is more stable, because you left without a 2-week notice.
Exactly.
And you went to go to this job, and now the people who've been at this job can't even give you a good reference to go to your next position, because you're like, well, if Wells is too unstable, I want to go to Ally Bank, or I want to go to Capital One or US Bank or somewhere else. And you don't really have good references because you've been in the industry less than 2 years. And because this one is realigning, you can't even re-up with them. So
in a nutshell, make sure you're considering all the different angles before you move.
Yes. Don't just go
right. No company. Sometimes it looks good, right? And I think, for the younger folks, I always encourage them, move around, because eventually you're going to come to a halt where you're like, eek, I cannot do this moving around stuff anymore. I kind of got to sit still a little bit so that, like you said, you can become an expert, in your craft. We're not saying for you to stay at that company for 10, 20 years, or maybe even, I don't know, 8 to 10, depending on whatever the situation is. But sometimes you got to evaluate the entire situation before moving forward.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And it's exactly what you kind of said, what is the company's history? What is their history within the past 2-3 years? Ooh, lost the charter. What's going on? How many times have you seen them when you just Google as far as layoffs? When was the last one? Also consider that whole last in, first out. Could it be you? Because a lot of times they're looking at that, who just came in? What kind of project, right,
Right.
is that person working on? Those project type of roles may be the first to go. Not saying that's just how it is across the board, but they may be the first to go.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, and I think that, even doing a little bit of research about not just what the company represents, because I think that's very important, especially, and this is not for anyone who's looking for a job. This
Mhm.
is solely for people who are in it to have a career. If you're looking for a job, just something to pay the bills, absolutely do whatever you
Mhm.
wish. But if you're looking to take intentional steps in building that career, these are the things that you must consider. These are the things that you must look at to make sure that you are getting something that's sustainable,
Right.
something
Yep.
that's reliable,
Hmm.
something that's going to be stable for you and your family, whatever
Exactly.
your family life looks like.
Exactly. And then also one of the other things too, for the ones who are ambitious, wherever you're going, whatever you kind of set out there, like you said, like being intentional about your growth, the next step, whatever that looks like, just make sure that company aligns to that.
Yes, absolutely.
Whatever that is. So yes, chase the paper. I'm always like, make sure you're properly compensated, but in the same time, you also want to make sure that you're growing or there's the opportunity to grow.
Right.
Because you
That
just
doesn't mean tomorrow, but there's opportunity
okay,
there.
opportunity to grow, right? And it's for development of skills or whatever the case is. You don't want to come in like it's great to come in and be the subject matter expert, but make sure you're not being bored
Yes.
because you could get stale. And it's okay, right? If you just want to come into a company, you want to retire there for the next 4 years, there's nothing wrong with that. But for the folks who are ambitious, I say take a look at your development plan. Make sure wherever you're going is aligned to that
Hmm.
and make sure you're growing. And like I said, nothing wrong with being stale because there are people that are like, no, I'm good where I'm at and I'm going to retire. Nothing wrong. But for the ambitious folks, make sure you don't get stale.
Yes. And it's interesting when I meet an ambitious person who is also a paper chaser. Because sometimes the paper chasers are not necessarily ambitious, and sometimes the ambitious people are not necessarily paper chasers. But when you have people who are ambitious and a paper chaser,
Yep.
then you
That's
have
me.
the then you have that mindset of just like you need to act your wage. They're not paying you to do all this extra work, so let's not
Mhm.
take it on. I think that
Right.
you can take on extra work, but do it responsibly.
Absolutely.
Like, it's okay to show your hand. Yeah, I can do this when you pay me
Right.
for it. Like, I've showed
Mhm.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. Working, what did it say? Working smarter, not harder.
Yes.
So earlier in my career, I used to work my butt off, but it wasn't necessarily smart. But as I, got a little bit more seasoned, I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, I'm good. Yes, I do have the skill sets to do this stuff. I don't mind rolling my sleeves up when necessary, but this isn't going to be my permanent thing to do. Okay.
Absolutely. It's all be a team player, but also
Hmm.
understand that you don't have to do everything. And it's
Exactly.
so easy. It's so easy to want to, especially when you want to be liked and you want to be seen, especially when you know the big boys are coming downstairs
Hmm.
and you want to put on a good show and things like that.
Right.
That's always a thought in the back of your mind when
Hmm.
you're ambitious and also a paper chaser, but also
Right.
if you are making, $15 an hour and the
Hmm.
job you're doing is for someone who's salaried at,
Right.
85 a year,
Hmm.
then there's a gap there that you're going to want to reconcile.
Exactly. And you're going to get miserable. You're
Yeah,
going to feel miserable. So it's always, just be very, very careful. There's nothing wrong
absolutely.
with taking on new work. And you know what? We know that because we're both like leaders and managers of people, right? So we're
Yes.
always about, when is a good time to kind of delegate. And I know sometimes people who aren't necessarily managers, they can actually delegate work too on the team.
Hmm.
I mean, of course, with the permission of your manager, but you can also delegate work as well.
Especially when you want to have, you want to show that you can prioritize without being told, because a lot of
Right.
positions now they'll teach you what you need to know, and then the manager only sees you when you mess up. That's how a lot of teams are now. So you have to be that self-starter. You have to be that individual who can manage on their own. So a way to make sure that you're not being burnt out is leaning on your team. Like, hey, either we're going to have an actual wage conversation where, hey, so I've been on this project for the last 6 months. And when starting, and that's where you set the tone. When we first had the conversation about doing this project, I said I would love to be a part of it as a part of a learning experience. However, if this is looking to be a more of a permanent position, I would like to renegotiate my wage or renegotiate the salary that I'm paid for the work that I'm doing to either get a title or pay. I prefer pay. You can keep the title. Me personally, you keep the title. I don't really care about the title.
I want to be compensated. I want to be compensated for my experience at the end of the day.
Yeah, and just even having that, and sometimes, a lot of times, I'm going to say a lot of times, the managers don't know how to have that conversation, so they kind of stick with the same canned response of, well, we don't have space, or there's not a position for you to move into.
Right.
And which is fine. They can say those things, but then also you also reserve the right to, look, you hired me for XYZ and that's what I'm going to work on.
Right, exactly. I mean, and it should be one of those things where you're making those negotiations with your manager, but also state that, hey, I'm also within those 6 months, I've developed this kind of skill set. And, potentially if there are internal opportunities, I'd like to expand my horizon at the next level, whatever that is, because at the next level, the compensation is going to come.
Yes. And I think that's where some people find it harder to have those kinds of conversations. But this is why I say it's important before you even start the project, before you put pen to paper, before you go to your first meeting. Hey, Mr. Manager. Hey, Miss Manager. I appreciate the opportunity to work on this. I understand that this is not my permanent position, but we're going to work on this project for 4 to 8 months or however long the project is. My expectation is that I'm able to come here to learn these skills. But if this once this project is completed or the project has gone on longer than anticipated, then the expectation is that we will come back to renegotiate my title and salary.
Absolutely. That right there, set expectations from the very beginning. Because if you don't, you will get stuck. And I'm not saying that the goalpost doesn't change in between. I mean, look at 2020. We were forced to be flexible.
Yes, absolutely.
So we don't have a choice, right? So it's understandable when some of those things do happen. But if we don't have a 2020, you should be renegotiating at that 6-month mark. If you know, it's like, hey, I came in to do A. Now I'm doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and maybe Z. So how do we, kind of like rectify this, renegotiate, or I built up other skill sets. Maybe someone else within the company could utilize my new set of skills. Or how do we go back to the beginning, such as making sure that I'm coming in here and being compensated for what I was hired to do?
Yes. I think that when you have an expectation, and that's where, when you have that expectation conversation with your manager in the beginning, then you both can walk away understanding, okay, we have a 6-month check-in coming up, or we have the expectation of talking about certain things, and that way you can hold them accountable. Because just like our managers hold us accountable, we got to hold them accountable.
Yeah, and I tell that to people all the time, especially when it comes to their careers. I'm like, you have to be able to own your career.
Yeah,
you might be sitting there like, my manager knows I'm doing all this, and they know I'm doing that. You're just one person on, it could be like a 10-person team. In addition to them managing all of those different people, they're also managing up all of the other stakeholders. They're also managing their body of work. So unfortunately, not saying that they're not thinking about you, but it's probably not top of mind. It's like, damn,
Yeah,
Leah's going above and beyond. I appreciate her. Oh my God, she makes my life so much easier. But not necessarily thinking that, man, this is outside of the scope of what we originally agreed. That's not top of mind.
correct. Correct.
But when you bring it to their top of mind, it's like, ooh, never thought about that. And I'm sorry. Or, you know what, hang on a little bit longer with me. I just need your help for another week or two. We're going to
Yeah.
try to figure something out. But you need to bring it back to the top of their mind.
And like you said, in those conversations,
Mm-hmm.
when you have that 6-month check-in, that 4-month check-in, whatever your development action plan is, state the skill sets in the frame that that the job you want is going to request it.
Yep.
Right. So if you're a project manager, you want to be able to say that you have those skills. When
Right.
you want to be if you want to go from, being an administrative assistant to a, what is it called? A learning development coach. If you
Right.
you have to be able to talk in those terms.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, it definitely took a turn because I think we were supposed to be talking about being the plug.
Yes, we were talking about being resourceful and being the plug, and it's like, well, but corporate America though.
Right. I'm like, how did we turn into that? I mean, it kind of sort of is, right? Because when people reach out to you for mentorship, there's like different levels of the mentor that you can be. You can be the
Right.
connector, you could be the role model, like that star employee who people reach out to, or you can be like the resource manager, and you basically help the person fix their problem in a way because you can help them out. Or I forgot what the fourth one was, but I know about those three. So a lot of times I find myself in that connector, the plug.
See, and I think that being the plug is probably the sweet spot.
Yep.
Because you're always going to have people who are coming to you who you can kind of put in your back pocket of just like, yeah, okay, I know a person in this industry, or I know a person who can do this. And then you also have people who have the need. Right. And then you have people who are going to meet the need. And you're like that in that sweet spot that can grant access to that other person. Where it's like, okay, well, I know that I need people who are these types of workers. And then if they reach out to you, you say, you know what? I do know somebody who's looking for a job. Or if you have somebody who is on the other side of just like, well, man, I really want to be able to work in this field, or not even work, but I want to be able to be connected with an artist who can do this kind of thing for me. And you're like, I know people who do artwork. Let me reach out to them and see.
Exactly. Which has been interesting because even for me, right, I was a lead for employee resource groups for like 10 years, for a decade. Okay. And what ended up happening was like, because of these external networking events, you get to meet people across the industry at all of these different companies. So during that time, whenever you start speaking to people and they're like, hey, you know what? I'm looking for something over in construction. I'm not in the construction industry, but funny enough, when I went to this NABA event, the National Association of Black Accountant event, I met someone in the construction industry randomly that does finance. So it's one of those things like, you know what, let me plug you into this individual that does this. Or the fact that I love art. I'm not really an artist. I think my artwork is not that great, but it makes me happy. Okay. And that's all that matters, people. Okay. Little stick figures look all right. But it's like going to like all these different art events. So when Black History Month came around and we wanted to display artwork, guess what? I'm reaching out to artists who I meet during my time on the weekends.
See, and I think that people lose what do you call it? I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm sorry. Give me just a second.
Yeah, no worries.
Tyrus, here, mommy's calling you back. I'll put in the password in just a minute, okay? I think people tend to lose sight of what their gifts are when they start looking at other people, right? So you being the plug, that's a great sweet spot. because
Right.
you know
Yep.
people who know people who know people.
Mm-hmm.
But some people want to be the people.
Right.
And if you're not there yet where you say, I have a product or I have a service
Mm-hmm.
to offer people, which being a plug is a service that you offer to people,
Right.
whether you charge or not.
Mm-hmm.
Being that plug is a great sweet spot to have, because you don't have to worry about, well, I don't then have to do a thing. I could
Exactly.
just connect people to the thing that they need, or the
Mm-hmm.
people or the group that they need, and then I can be
Mm-hmm.
done. But everybody wants to be the person, or be the person
Right.
that gets their needs met.
Right.
And just like, man, if I knew somebody who could do this, or if I had this or whatever, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, just play your position.
Yeah.
Be resourceful and play your
What you
position.
said before. That's what you said earlier. Play your position. Full circle.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
People have to be not comfortable, but confident in playing their position.
Mm-hmm.
And just like, I know that I cannot draw,
Right.
but I know someone who can. So if I
Mm-hmm.
need something, like, I'm not going to find, like, first of all, Canva is a great tool to be able to do.
Yo, don't talk about Canva,
Listen,
please. I am now a beginner of Canva.
listen, let me tell you, it is such a great tool to use, but I'm going to be honest. I know what looks good, but I'm not the person to put it together. But my sister, the co-host of this show, amazing at art. Okay, she is great at
Right.
it. Now, don't ask her to do you any commission pieces, because she's not there yet. But
Do we have the what is your sister name? Lancinette Tasha Artsy Lamore? Because that's her.
no.
That is her right there. That's my little sister. That's who's
No.
been helping us with the social media for the past 2 weeks and doing her Canva stuff.
Listen,
She's been helping us out, and she does art as well. But don't ask her to do commission.
no, don't listen. She's great at what she does, and she will do what she likes, and that's it. And
Wow.
it's been so great to see her like working in that, because Canva for her, shoot, it's easy. For me,
Right.
hours.
Right? Aren't you like trying to like take the picture and put it in the little circle, and then it will go? And how do I copy and paste the text and put it in there? And why isn't it intuitive?
How come I can't click the thing?
Right? Why can't I click over? And then I'm pretty sure she comes and she's just like, gosh, let me do this for you. Click, click, boom, boom. And you wasted your whole Saturday doing that, didn't you? You wasted your whole Saturday. And you only got 2 days in a week. You wasted the whole one.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I think you have the same little sister. I got to meet your little sister.
I'm telling you, she's great. She is so great at what she does. But I never try to be an artist, because I know somebody who is.
Yeah, I try.
If there's anything more, and I say, hey, you want to do a commissions piece? If I want something like that, she's like, no, I don't want to do it. Guess what? Yep. I can go to other people who have that access.
Yep.
Whether it's, a person who knows people who do tattoos, who may know another artist who's like willing to draw or paint something for me. Or if I need somebody to give me tips on, I don't know, whatever, painting my house or interior decorating, because I'm also not an interior decorator.
Right.
So I can put stuff on a wall, but it's not going to make sense. It's going to make sense to me because it's lined up, right?
Put stuff on the wall, okay? Yeah. I'm getting the command stick and putting stuff up, because I'm like, I am not getting no nail up in this wall. Like, what do I do?
Absolutely not.
Okay, let me get my little command stick and stick that painting up there. It looks good to me.
No, I am. Oh man, I'm just. I think that people just need to know how to be good at what you're good at.
Yep. And be okay.
Leave everything else alone. You don't have to be great at everything. You don't have to be amazing at. Look, be good at what you're good at.
Exactly. And even if that's nothing, maybe you're not good at anything, but you're good at I don't know, whatever it is. You better find it out. Do some soul searching.
You know how I found my passion?
Yeah. Let
Some
me hear this.
people get stuck in saying that they don't know what their passion is. And it's
Mm,
like your passion is very easy to find once you know how to look for it.
yep.
Your passion can be found in that thing that bothers your very soul every time you see it.
Yep.
So if it's the pillows are not straight on the couch, if it is robotics in
Mm-hmm.
something, the way something is it that everything is not in order or there's no color scheme,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's the way people talk. Like for me, my passion is my frustration, where I get so frustrated in listening to the way some people communicate.
Mm.
I travel a lot. I move around a lot.
Yeah.
And one thing that I have found is that people do not effectively communicate. They just go off of assumptions and you're just supposed to make it make sense. And
Yep.
I'm like, no, you need to tell me what it is you're trying to say.
Yeah.
To the best of your ability, tell me what you're trying to say.
Mm.
And it's not even that I have an issue with slang or everybody needs to speak in standard English. It's not even that.
Mm-hmm.
Please explain to me what you are meaning. Like when people say it's a vibe, or people say I'm feeling some type of way, and you just need to figure it out. Okay,
You're like, what
it,
does the type of way mean? What does
are
how to define it?
are you feeling negative? Are you feeling positive? And if you're feeling negative, are you disgusted? Are you angry? Are
Right.
you upset? Are you bitter? Are you triggered? Like there's so many different ways we can go about this, and I
Mm-hmm.
just need you to tell me. Or when people comment with a gif, and I understand what they mean in text, because
Mm-hmm.
I understand the feeling that gif or gif is it gif
Right.
or
I don't know. GIF, one of them.
it's the
GIF,
moving picture one. And
folks.
but in person they don't know how to express themselves. And
Oh
I'm
my
just like
gosh.
that like when I say I was talking to a guy and he was telling me that it
You
was
just nailed it. And probably the issue as well with a lot of the folks who are, I don't want to say like a certain generation, but they might be the ones with the issues now, right? Because they're communicating with emojis, gifs or gifts all the time, to the point where they can't even articulate really how they feel
yeah, by using memes.
by using memes.
But I think that it's also it's not even just that. Even people in our generation,
Mm-hmm.
they when I have to tell adults, don't make me assume what you mean. Explain to me what you mean, because if I assume incorrectly, you're going to be upset.
Right. Yep.
Because I I do have a sense of emotional intelligence. I can
Mm-hmm.
understand how somebody's feeling as an empath,
Right.
but that doesn't tell me why.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're trying to explain it to me, use words.
Right.
Explain to me what
Exactly.
you're feeling. And if
Yeah.
you don't know how to communicate, look, I'm feeling very like, what did Blanche say off of Golden Girls? She said magenta. She's feeling magenta because she's mix of all these ugly colors,
Yep.
and she's just like, bleh.
Yep.
If you don't
Exactly.
know how to express it, let's
Right.
talk about it. But
Yep.
that is how I found my passion in debating, in talking to
Mm-hmm.
people, teaching people to effectively communicate. Because when you go on these jobs, you can't send an emoji during an interview and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, how are you at work?" No, you need to be able to express to me that you are competent in doing your
Right.
job.
So let me ask you, have you, I mean, are you a psychology major? Because you're hitting those points today. Okay.
I did actually. I was going to be a sociology major
Seriously,
at one
between
point.
like the disassociation you're hitting me with, and then also becoming an effective communicator, but also utilize, it's just like, hold on a second. I need a session for some people.
Listen,
on the couch.
listen, and is in a lot of it comes from self-work and tools that I've gained
Mm-hmm.
in trying to grow myself.
Right.
So a lot of this stuff really comes from me learning who I am and how I relate and present to the world. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Sashalla.
Thank
I
you,
definitely appreciate
Leah.
you. Can you tell people where to find you?
You can find me. I am on the gram, right? That's what young people like to say. I'm on the gram. Oh, I'm on the gram. I'm on most social media platforms. So Instagram, Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. If you ever need any kind of help, advice, you feel like you're stuck in a rut, listen to the podcast, but you can reach out to me. So
Awesome. And where can they find the podcast?
oh, I gotta get used to that. Like, I'm not even plugging my podcast like that. So it's you're like, hello, get it together. All right. So Decoding Corporate America, you can find it on all platforms: Apple, Spotify, Audible. I'm probably missing some, but it's out there. If you want to look up any streaming podcast platform, type in Decoding Corporate America and we'll pop up.
And what's your Instagram handle for Decoding Corporate America?
Yeah, it's called Decoding Corporate.
Decoding Corporate.
Yep, okay. Go on there. You can even find me. You can find my in the co-host. You can click on that if you can't spell my name because it is kind of long. It's Sashalla together. But yeah, so I'm on there. Look for me. Say hi. Pop in. And thank you, Leah, for inviting me.
Awesome.
I feel elite now, like one of the guests on Leah's show.
Thank you. That makes me feel good. That makes me feel good. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. I've been your host, Leah. Thank you so much to Sashalla. Hopefully we'll be able to have her back for our live on Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Time on YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Take a Space Podcast. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/champions of discourse. We'll see you there Thursday at 8 p.m. So make sure you tune in. Make sure you follow us on social media. Make sure you follow Sashalla and Decoding Corporate America because we all need to get some help. And their podcast is really great at doing that. So thank you all so much. You have a great day. We'll see you Thursday.
Bye, everybody.